brings us to the next slide. They built the largest private satellite communication network in the world for, I think, about $1 billion. Stan Walton was very struck by two things that were happening in his stores. First of all, due to the sort of slower credit and communication systems in the South, cashiers were still checking long lists of credit card numbers for like bad numbers when somebody would come through to pay with credit, or they were calling directly to the central computer of the credit companies to verify available credit, which is really not efficient at all. And then at the same time, at the end of the day, sales managers were compiling all of their sales and inventory reports and spending up to 4 hours faxing them in on dial-up modems and, basically waiting by the phone to send their messages out. So they invested all of this money, and immediately it turned around. It reduced the variable cost of voice and data communications, because you were actually paying a phone bill based on how long you were sending this information. And then it increased the speed and accuracy of the transactions, because it sort of took human error out of the cashiers scanning the goods, cashiers, calling up and finding out whether or not someone was actually going to pay for something. And then out of that grew the custom sales and inventory system, Retail Link. Once all of this information started getting beamed back into Bentonville 8 times a day, every sale, form of payment, the register it was sold at, whether or not it was sold at a discount, all of this information was getting dumped into Bentonville, and they thought maybe they could do something more productive with it. So they created Retail Link, and it takes all of the sales that are made by all of the companies and allows vendors and Wal-Mart to manipulate it to see what's a strategic approach. So it shifted the power to project inventory needs from vendors to Wal-Mart, because in the past, vendors were just sort of telling Wal-Mart what they needed, because they had a more regular view of what was actually being sold. And then it shifted the cost of inventory management from Wal-Mart to the vendors. So instead of Wal-Mart having the nice person in the aisle scanning how many bottles of juice or boxes of diapers there were, vendors were actually developing whole teams to do strategic inventory management, because not only could they see what they were selling, but what their competitors were selling as well. And then finally, this whole system led to micro-marketing, which is like when you get a coupon book in the mail with very oddly familiar-looking goods to you. And that ultimately lets stores reduce the amount of actual sales help they give you, because they sort of gave you sales help in the mail already, and it's entirely automated. So this definitely changed the productivity of the people who were working on the floor at Wal-Mart and managing the stores. But also, it dramatically changed what store managers were doing with their time. Instead of 4 hours at the end of the day just trying to dump information off to somebody else, they were actually able now to look at a spreadsheet of what was going on and make strategic decisions about what to move where, and what to discount, what to stop ordering. And then this is my favorite example, because it's pretty clear what they've done here. I think in 2000, Wal-Mart had a store in Texas that was the meat department was basically on the verge of unionization. They were about to vote, and there was really no disputing that it was a skilled procedure. It was dangerous. It required a lot of speed, and it was done managing very perishable goods. So it was expensive for Wal-Mart already, and then they were already paying these in-house butchers to do custom cuts for their walk-up customers. So Wal-Mart contacted its meat packers and said, we're going to entirely case-ready meat. Case-ready meat is already cut, and it looks pretty in the package, because food scientists discovered the way to slow the process of meat bloom, which is when, when you cut into the flesh, immediately it'll turn bright red from the oxygen. So what they did was they lowered the oxygen content that is actually in the package, and then they developed a gas-permeable plastic top for it, so that eventually it will turn red. So by the time it gets to the customer, it looks like meat you actually want to buy and eat. So what this did was entirely bypass the in-house meat cutting system. It went entirely to the packers, and eliminated Wal-Mart's need for even addressing whether or not they should have a union in one of their shops. In the process of this, it dramatically increased the scale of case writing production, and I can only assume it increased employment in the meat science industry because of the scale that they went from basically overnight sending all of this into Wal-Mart alone. So, it's just some stylized facts here about retail wages in the last decade. Management wage has gone up 47%. Average wage went up, I think, about 33%. But after implementing all of this technology, here's what Wal-Mart does. They ultimately set the standard for retail practices. They push new technology toward critical mass, as we saw with the meat packing. And after increasing the skill of its laborers and increasing their own efficiency, then, as we all know, Wal-Mart does nothing but grow. It gets bigger and bigger all the time. So it might be fair to conclude that Wal-Mart is in the process of implementing all this technology, accelerating the process of creative destruction.